Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat. We're about to start. Good afternoon to all. I call to order the 7th plenary meeting of the committee. I invite delegates, please take your seats. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now resume its consideration of Agenda Item 4, entitled Preparation of the International Legally Binding Instrument on Plastic Pollution, including in the marine environment. The main purpose of our plenary meeting today is to take a stock of status of our negotiations to decide on the way forward. I will now invite the co-chairs of the contact groups and of the legal drafting group to report on their work. Colleagues, I now invite the co-chairs of the contact group 1 to provide a short report on the progress of their work. Ambassador Ikeda and Mr. Borgman, you have the floor from the seat of Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the co-chairs of Contact Group 1, I would like to begin by expressing our sincere gratitude to you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the INC for the trust placed in us to lead this important work. We would like very much to thank all delegations, the volunteers to co-facilitate, everybody who participated in informals, groups of countries, smaller gatherings, everything, and also to the observers who could follow our discussions and very patiently went through with us through very long sessions. Thank you very much. As you may recall, our mandate was to conduct textual negotiations and make proposals for the committee's consideration on the following: scope, Article 2 definitions, what used to be Article 2 definitions, what used to be Article 3 plastic products, Article 4 exemptions, Article 5 plastic product design, Article 6 supply, sustainable production. We were also tasked, time permitting, and if needed, to identify any relevant issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference. Tell me when I have to stop, okay? Okay. Since the opening of this resumed session on the 5th of August, Contact Group 1 has convened 8 times in contact group settings, 8 times in informal settings, and additionally various formats of member-led informal, informals, and bilateral discussions. We wish to extend our deep appreciation to all delegates who have engaged tirelessly and constructively through these sessions, as I previously said. Your commitment, flexibility, and willingness to continue discussions, even on complex and divergent issues, reflect the shared determination to advance this process and reach consensus here in Geneva. The current status of our work is reflected in CRP.1, assembled text of 9th of August 2025, as published on the INC website.
Thank you so much. While our group has not produced additional written outcomes for plenary consideration, we had a rich and substantive discussion. These discussions have helped to clarify positions, build shared understandings, and explore potential landing zones. We are optimistic that these exchanges have informed the development of the latest iteration of the text and will support progress toward an agreement at this meeting. On a personal note, it has been a privilege, and I cannot emphasize this enough, to work with my co-chair, Angelica. The spirit of collaboration and mutual respect shown by members has also been very inspiring. In closing, I would like to thank the co-facilitators who generously volunteered their time and the many late nights to support our work. On Article 3, Ms. Maria Fuad Al-Yishi from Saudi Arabia, Mr. Nelson Linares from Brazil, Mr. Tek Kiat Lim from Singapore, and Ms. Victoria Hallam from New Zealand. On Article 5, Ms. Gudi Alcamade and from the Netherlands, and Mr. Juan Galeano from Argentina, as well as all the delegations who have convened informal sessions or have taken part or have contributed in these considerations, in these negotiations. I cannot thank them enough, as well as I thank the Secretariat for their continued support. With that, Mr. Chair, we'd like to conclude our report and hand back to you. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, Ambassador Ikeda and Mr. Borkman. I now invite the co-chairs of Contact Group 2 to provide a short report on the progress of their work. Ms. Toika and Mr. Derry, you have the floor from the seat of Ghana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On behalf of my fellow co-chair, Tulia, and I will want to provide an overview of the outcomes under Contact Group 2, specifically on the progress of work since the last plenary, which took place on Saturday, the 9th of August. Chair, to recap, our mandate as a contact group was to work on Articles 7, releases and leakages, Article 8, plastic waste management, Article 9, existing plastic pollution, and Article 10, just transition. Before I proceed to give the overview, Mr. Chair, myself and my co-chair are grateful to the members who facilitated informal and informal consultations on all articles that we were mandated to work with. Particularly, let me extend our appreciation to the following delegations: the United Kingdom and Kenya for facilitating informal meetings on Article 7, Chile and Switzerland for facilitating informal meetings on Article 8, the European Union and OASIS for facilitating informal meetings on Article 9, and Cameroon and Chile for facilitating informal meetings on Article 10. I wish to thank all delegates for their efforts and for working so constructively in the past few days. Now, let me proceed to give overview of the work we have done and the status of our progress. Since the last plenary meeting, Contact Group 2 has met twice, including this morning and on Monday, 11th August. As agreed in Contact Group 2 meetings, informal meetings were established for all articles within our mandate. And the informal consultations were held as follows. On Article 7, we had 3 informal meetings scheduled on Saturday, 9th, Monday, 11th, and Tuesday, 12th August. On Article 8, we had 2 informal meetings which took place on Monday, 11th, and Tuesday, 12th August. On Article 9, we had 3 informal meetings that took place on Saturday, 9th, Monday, 11th, and Tuesday, 12th August. On Article 10, we had only 1 informal meeting which took place on Tuesday, 12th of August. Members also held a series of informals across all the articles, which we understand were constructive and engaging discussions. We thank all members for their participation in these discussions. And Chair, I will now hand over to Tulia to provide the summary of the remaining issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. While important progress was made in the CG2, including completing a round of textual negotiations on all 4 articles, bracketed text and points of divergence remained within the text. Until the closure of Contact Group 2 this morning, the remaining issues are: on Article 7, many members recognized the importance of addressing releases and leakages of plastic. Divergence remains about the scope of the article and whether the elements discussed could be addressed under other articles of the instrument. On Article 8, environmentally sound management of plastic waste was considered being crucial. Divergence remains in the details of implementing environmentally sound management, on addressing the transboundary movements of plastic waste that may not be covered by the Basel Convention. There are also different views on how the concept of extended producer responsibility would be reflected in the text. On Article 9, there was overall convergence in the importance of addressing plastic pollution as a standalone article, on the need for measures to address plastic pollution in areas within national jurisdiction and to identify zones with plastic pollution. Divergence remains in terminology on existing versus legacy plastic pollution and on approaches and applications regarding plastic pollution in areas beyond national jurisdiction. There was also divergence on existence, format, and scope of proposed remediation mechanism. On Article 10, there was convergence regarding the importance of protection of those disproportionately impacted by plastic pollution. Divergence remains of the framing and scope of just transition and the need and the role of proposed subsidiary body. Acknowledgement of interlinkages within other articles, including reporting and means of implementation, were found. As co-chairs, we thank all the delegates participating in the work of the CG2 and stand ready to continue the work with the INC members and you, Mr. Chair, towards the end. Thank you.
I thank you very much, Ms. Stoika and Mr. Derry. And now I invite the co-chairs of Contact Group 3 to provide a short report on the progress of their work. Ms. Lynch and Ms. Sisio, you have the floor from the seat of Palau.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of myself and my co-chair, we express our sincere thanks to the members of Contact Group 3 who have worked diligently to fulfill our mandate. We also wish to thank you, Chair, for the trust you have placed in my co-chair and I in assigning this important mandate. The first readings of both Articles 11 and 12 were completed by the group. On Article 11, the Contact Group mandated the co-chairs to prepare a new iteration of paragraphs 1 to 7, reflecting the efforts of the group. The version of 11 August at 1830 is the latest text for this article. While members of Contact Group 3 acknowledge that this text does not encompass all views or proposals and is not exhaustive, the group welcomed it as a constructive text for engagement moving forward, noting that the members did not get an opportunity to discuss paragraphs 1 to 6. On Article 12, a first reading was completed this morning, and the final iteration of that text will be uploaded today. I'll now hand the floor over to my co-chair, Kate, to continue our report.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Our discussions have been substantive, helping to clarify positions, deepen mutual understanding, and highlight areas where further work could lead to convergence. While some issues remain challenging, members have expressed a willingness to explore creative and flexible approaches, including in informal and smaller settings, to move closer to common ground. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank the representatives from Austria and Costa Rica, Ms. Elfriede Anamor and Ms. Leticia Zamora Zambado, for their leadership of the informal sessions. We stand ready to work closely with members and the Chair to identify possible ways forward. On a personal note, we sincerely thank all delegates for their openness, flexibility, and commitment to advancing our work, and we look forward to continuing these efforts together. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you very much, Ms. Lynch and Ms. Isior. And now I invite the co-chairs of the Contact Group 4 to provide a short report on the progress of their work. Mr. Christian and Mr. Kobayashi, you have the floor from the seat of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the co-chairs of Contact Group 4, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for the trust you have placed in us to facilitate this important work. It has been a privilege to serve in this role, and we are deeply grateful for the spirit of collaboration, dedication, and constructive engagement that has characterized our deliberations. Since the opening plenary on 5th August, the delegates have worked tirelessly across multiple modalities to advance our collective efforts. We would like to acknowledge the significant time and energy invested by all members. Between 5 and 13 August, the group convened 11 meetings of contact group sessions and 13 meetings of informal consultations. In addition, members tirelessly worked through bilateral engagements and in small groups, even in the corridors when a meeting room could not be made available. These interactions have been instrumental in clarifying positions, identifying areas of convergence, and narrowing down options for the way forward. We commend the flexibility and openness shown by all members, which have greatly contributed to the progress made thus far. As you will recall, at its outset, Contact Group 4 was mandated to consider the preamble and 23 articles from the Chair's text, which I will not read out this time, that spanned across several thematic areas. We were successfully able to open discussion on all articles and the preamble, with additional time allocated for many of these in informal meetings, which my co-chair will subsequently lay out. We also heard from members that they actively organized and engaged in many informal informals to discuss outstanding issues with the view to better understand each other's positions to find common ground. During our meetings, we also had additional full-text proposals for new articles and alternatives to existing ones, with some of these being introduced as recent as yesterday. During our time together, we did our best to allocate time to consider all proposals introduced, with a view to ensuring that work in our contact group was reflective of the diversity of views. Having said that, due to the limited time, some of the issues were not considered at a depth that was conducive to reaching consensus in the form of textual outcomes. We have endeavored to capture the latest status of work of Contact Group 4 in the status of work documents available on the in-session portal. Where we were not able to capture some matters accurately, we have taken due regard of these as indicated in our group, so it may be considered in any future discussions. We could not have achieved this work without the constructive spirit from all members, the dedicated support and tireless work by the Secretariat, and last but not least, the calm and composed leadership of my co-chair. I thank you all very much. With that, I now turn to my co-chair, Lynn Roy, for further reporting.
Thank you very much, Go, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the floor. My co-chair and I would also like to convey our special thanks to the following delegates who have assisted us in leading the informal work to advance the text. Our distinguished delegates from Brazil who facilitated informal consultations on Article 19 and Article 23 bis. Distinguished delegate from the European Union for facilitating informal consultation, Articles 20 and 20 bis. Distinguished delegate from Colombia for co-facilitating informal consultations on the preamble, Article 1 bis and Article 23 bis. Distinguished delegate from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for co-facilitating informal consultations on the preamble and Article 1 bis. Distinguished delegate from Palau for co-facilitating informal consultations on Article 20 bis and Articles 14 through 16. Distinguished delegate from Peru for co-facilitating informal consultations on Article 20, and our distinguished delegate from Uganda for co-facilitating informal consultations on Article 19. The contributions from these delegates were indispensable for informing the contact group on possible solutions. Permit me to also recognize the members who facilitated informal informals and for their efforts in bringing their views to the contact group. Members noted the time constraints and uneven consideration given to some articles and expressed their wish for parity in this regard. As a result, the members' hard work over the last 10 days has demonstrated a lot of flexibility and spirit of compromise. Contact Group 4 has successfully forwarded the following 2 articles for the consideration of the plenary and for onward submission to the legal drafting group, and those were Article 31 on authentic text and Article 32 on withdrawal. In addition, Mr. Chairman, we are pleased to forward another article, previously Article 30, on the depository for the consideration of the plenary. This represents a clear testament to the group's efficiency, focus, and commitment. I'm not saying we won the contest with respect to articles, but I'm just saying we're the only ones who submitted any. Statement of fact. In closing, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you, Mr. Chair, for the trust you placed in us to lead this important work. I also wish to thank all members once again for their constructive engagement, collegiality, and commitment throughout the week. It has been a privilege to serve in this capacity. I wish to thank my able co-chair for his diligence, leadership, and to the Secretariat for their tireless effort, expertise, and professionalism. Finally, Mr. Chair, we remain committed and look forward to continued collaboration in the final hours of the INC process in reaching a balanced, inclusive, and historic outcome to demonstrate our solidarity and collective responsibilities to tackle plastic pollution. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christian and Mr. Kobayashi. Dear colleagues, on behalf of the committee, I would like to sincerely thank the co-chairs for their hard work in leading the contact groups to get us this far. I would also like to thank the representatives who serve as facilitators of the informals under the contact groups and the members for their engagement. Noting that the contact groups have gone as far as they can within their work or working modalities, at this stage, the work in the contact groups has thus concluded. I now invite the co-chairs of the legal drafting group to provide a short report on the progress of their work. Mr. Baudouin, Mr. Kenfag, and Mr. Al-Hubrand, you have the floor from the seat of Cameroon.
Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of my co-chair, Annick Baudouin and Eyad Al-Jubran, I would like to provide a brief summary of the output of the first meeting of the legal drafting group. On Saturday, 9 August, we were requested by the committee in plenary to review 2 articles of the assembled text, Article 31 on depository and Article 32 on authentic text. We also consider the signature block at the very end of the text as part of our review. The group met on Monday, 11 August. On behalf of my co-chairs, I want to thank all the legal experts from member states who participated. We had a productive discussion and were able to swiftly complete our review of the text that was forwarded to us. In our review, we identified only minor editorial issues and have proposed correction to these for consideration by the committee. All comments have been placed in our output document and posted on INC-5.2 website. With that, Mr. Chair, we would like to conclude our report. Thank you.
And I thank you, Ms. Baudouin, Mr. Genfag, and Mr. Al-Hubran. As recommended by the Contact Group 4, I would like to invite the committee to transmit Article 30 to the legal drafting group with the understanding that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed in the plenary. I hope this is agreeable to everyone. I now invite the committee to take note of Articles 31 and 32 as contained in the outcome document from the legal drafting group, which was made available on the INC-5.2 webpage, on the understanding that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. Also, noting that the references to the name of the instrument will have to be consistently reviewed and reflected across the text once the committee agrees on this matter. Further, noting that once the full text of the instrument is finalized for consideration by the committee, the numbering of the articles may have to be adjusted. I hope this is agreeable. Distinguished delegates, we are in a critical point in our process. We have hours left to deliver on our mandate. And even though we have made some progress, we have not been advancing at the speed needed to conclude by tomorrow. Since we last met in the plenary on Saturday, I have continued to consult with the Bureau, the co-chairs, and the members on issues which we have not been able to solve under the current modalities, and on the specific alternatives on the way forward. With the encompassing views resulting from my consultations on Monday, 11 August, I convened a meeting with a representative group of members, both geographically and in terms of positions. I asked the members present to convene to all the members the content of the focus discussions at this meeting. Based on the discussions at this meeting, and in a manner that was supportive of the ongoing work in the contact groups, as well as with the inputs from the Bureau and the co-chairs, I request the ambassadors of Chile and Japan to undertake bilateral meetings on my behalf on Article 11 and Article 6, respectively. For Article 11, the contact group requests the co-chairs to bring the matter to my attention to unblock discussions. For Article 6, from my consultations with members and the co-chairs, there was a shared understanding that this matter required an alternative approach. I would like to thank Chile and Japan for their support in undertaking these bilateral meetings, which so far, as I have heard from the members, have been effective. Bilateral meetings will continue as needed. It has been made clear to me from my consultations with members, the Bureau, the co-chairs, and the facilitators of the bilateral meetings that the remaining time we have needs to be focused on resolving critical differences. While members have reported that some progress was made by working in separate tracks, At this urgent moment, these different strands needed to be brought together into a single picture of where we stand to help us move towards consensus on a final agreed text. Therefore, in exercising my authority and responsibility as chair to lead this process and to ensure that the committee delivers on its mandate, I circulate my draft text proposal today. This draft text is presented as my proposal for consideration by all members. I have developed this text keeping in mind the extremely limited time available until the end of these negotiations and the intention expressed by all members to finalize this instrument this week here in Geneva. I have developed this proposal based on the reports that I have received from the 4 contact groups. I have also developed this based on my consultation with members and inputs from the co-chairs and facilitators of the bilateral meetings. This draft represents my best attempt at capturing the elements that could lay the foundation for an instrument to be agreed upon this week to deliver on our shared responsibility. It builds on those areas where convergence exists. It also takes into account the broad and continued convergence of views expressed by members in plenary, in the contact groups, and in my consultations. And at the same time, is reflective of the commitment I have heard to conclude this instrument and successfully deliver on our mandate. After this plenary meeting, I will meet with regional groups to hear members' views and continue consultations on my draft text proposal circulated today. I will take these views into account as well as the input from my consultations and the bilateral meetings to adjust and circulate a revised draft text proposal after I finish my consultations with the regional groups and the bilaterals. In plenary tomorrow, I will propose that the committee forwards the revised draft text to the legal drafting group. We will convene again in a closing plenary tomorrow to approve the final draft text and for the committee to forward it to the Diplomatic Conference of Plenipotentiaries for adoption. For clarity, I informed the Bureau last night of my plans and requested them to transmit information to the respective groups. Following the conclusion of the work of the contact groups this morning and the reports of the co-chairs, I prepared and circulate the first draft proposal in advance of this plenary. These steps taken that I have outlined until the closing plenary ensure that we continue in a member-driven process, providing all the delegations with the opportunity to contribute and make their views heard. They reflect our collective commitment to constructive engagement, inclusivity, and reaching a balanced outcome. Having said this, I take it that everyone is now fully informed of the steps that brought us here and the way forward. I ask that we utilize our extremely limited time in an efficient manner by concluding this plenary meeting immediately and continuing our consultations, including through regional groups. Again, I urge members to utilize all available time to engage proactively to achieve agreement on the text. The committee The committee has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of item 4. I can recognize that the United States of America is asking for the floor. It was not my intention to open the floor, so we can continue our consultations. As I mentioned, I would like to go to the different regional groups, also to discuss, to talk with all members on my way forward that I have presented to you. So I will ask the indulgence of the United States of America, and I can see Saudi Arabia too, if we could go that way forward and we could discuss also on the text that we have, or that I have presented, first with the regional groups, and also I will carry on consultations with the members. Distinguidos delegados, veo.
Distinguished delegates, I see that there's a request for a point of order. The United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just think it's important that we have a very clear common understanding on exactly what the path forward is. Are you saying you're planning to go to the regional meetings to talk about the process moving forward that you just discussed? Or are you saying that you have proposed this and plan to move forward with this process and simply plan to talk to the regional groups about how it moves forward? I think for us, we were trying to listen carefully, but at one point, for example, I thought I heard you say we were going to forward the draft text to the legal drafting group based on an iteration of the text. But I think we would need a clarification on that. In addition, consultations with regional groups, I think, are helpful. But just a reminder that not all countries coordinate a regional position, and our country is one of those. And so our expectation would be that you would be doing adequate consultations to ensure that all those in the room have an opportunity to present their views to you. And just to say, a regional-only approach from our perspective may not achieve that. I think there are ways that you could do so, however. So if I could just ask you to be, I'm just concerned if you're asking, if we're agreeing here to everything you said about the path forward, I think we're going to need a little bit of time to talk about that. But if your proposal is to discuss the path forward with the regional groups to come back, I think that would provide us some reassurance. So if you could please clarify that, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much indeed, United States. And I'm happy to clarify the work plan that I shared with you. As I mentioned previously, I have presented to the member states a draft text that has been circulated to you and that was made available to you before this plenary session began. And I indicated that after this plenary meeting, after hearing the reports from the contact groups, the co-chairs of the contact groups, my intention is to have a meeting with each of the regional groups to engage in a dialogue with you, to engage in a listening exercise with the members of all of those regional groups. Moreover, I intend to maintain consultations with the member states on the draft text that I put forward for your consideration. Those consultations and those meetings with regional groups, as well as with individual members, will feed into the crafting of a new revised proposal, a revised version of my draft text that will then be submitted to member states in the wake of said consultations with the different groups and members. And with regard to the text that will be sent, and only once the committee believes that it should be sent to the legal drafting group and then subsequently to the diplomatic conference, then said text will only be forwarded to those bodies if the committee agrees to that happening. The second text, or the second version of the text that I will work on following the consultations with the regional groups and consultations with members, will be submitted here to the plenary for its consideration. And if the committee decides that that is the appropriate course of action, that second draft can be forwarded to the legal drafting group. And once it has we've then received the feedback from the legal drafting group in a plenary session of the committee, and we've had the feedback from the legal drafting group, the committee may decide to approve said text with any feedback from the legal drafting group and forward it to the diplomatic conference. That said, I would like to consult with those delegations who I see have requested the floor in this plenary to see whether you really need to take the floor. I would ask your indulgence and ask you to refrain from making statements here in this setting. Time is not on our side. We only have a few hours left to wrap up our work in Geneva. So I would ask you, please, to withdraw your request for the floor so that we can wrap things up here and move immediately to the regional consultations and other consultations to tackle the pressing issues in the remaining time so that we can continue to move forward and to ensure that by tomorrow we have a text that we're all happy with and that can be agreed by the committee as a whole. So I would plead with those who've requested the floor, as I say, to withdraw those requests. I would plead for your support so that we can continue immediately with our consultations and with the meetings on the proposed draft text that I have submitted to the plenary session.
Agradezco.
I would like to thank states, member states who have withdrawn their requests for the floor. This will gift us with more time in hand for the consultation process. That said, I see that there are some states who have not withdrawn their request. I would once again plead with you for your understanding and ask if you could consider withdrawing your request so that we have time to continue with our consultations so that we can adjourn this plenary session and move straight away to the regional group consultations.
Veo que
I see that there is still a list of requests for the floor, although I do see that there are further states who have withdrawn said requests. I thank you for your understanding and your flexibility. I do nonetheless see, no, I beg your pardon, it seems that everyone has withdrawn, so we can move forward. Thank you very much for your understanding. No, I beg your pardon. Colombia with a point of order. Colombia, you have the floor. Thank you very much. We regret to inform you that as far as Colombia is concerned, the proposed draft text is entirely unacceptable, and we cannot accept it as a basis for negotiation.
Please, dear colleagues, Dear colleagues, could we continue?
The text is imbalanced. It is not a text that we continue working on. So I would ask you to consult with parties and give us an opportunity to share our views on this suggested methodology, because we cannot accept continuing to work in the way that you suggested, and will reserve any specific comments on the text and on the methodology for when you give us the floor again. Thank you. My thanks to Colombia. Says the chair. Once again, the intention of this proposal is to use it as the basis for working. It's a proposal, nothing more. I intend to use it as a vehicle to work with the regional groups and with member states in order to ensure that we can continue to move ahead. It's a proposal that I've submitted in my capacity as chair to the members for your consideration. I see that there are still countries that have requested the floor. Once again, my thanks to those who've withdrawn their requests. But I see that there are still requests for the floor, including a point of order from Chile. Chile, you have the floor. I'm much obliged to you, Chair. I wanted to raise a point of order to request further clarification on the proposed way of proceeding. It is my understanding your intention is to meet with the regional groups. And if we understand you correctly, that's where you want to have the conversations. You want to have those conversations with the regional groups on your draft in the next few hours. But we believe there's a core procedural issue that has to be grappled with here. And that is that in the wake of the publication of your draft text, once we received it, I think it's natural that we would have reactions to the text. But it's my understanding you don't want to hear those reactions in the plenary, but in the regional groups. But of course, in the regional groups, not all delegations are covered. Not all member states are members of regional groups. So there would be a problem with regard to inclusivity if it's not addressed in the plenary, if your draft is not addressed in the plenary. We're not sure whether your suggestion of dialoguing with the regional groups as a way of hearing people's concerns is also a time-effective way of working, because they could end up being very lengthy discussions with each regional group. We also don't think it's appropriate that once the text has been revised and the plenary is convened, we don't think it's appropriate to suspend the plenary meeting and to engage in discussions on a text that you submitted to the plenary in subgroups of regions or member states. This should be discussed in the plenary. So we raise these procedural concerns, though we do thank you, Chair, and the coordinators for your work. But if these discussions on your proposed draft text take place at the regional group level, then we would fall into a procedural trap and we would be faced with procedural problems that would be difficult to overcome. And echoing Colombia, we also find that the draft text you've submitted is unacceptable. The draft text gives rise to major problems and major concerns because there are significant gaps, there are significant shortcomings. It has failed to capture adequately all the different positions we put on the table, and it isn't up to par when it comes to tackling the scale of the crisis that we are confronted with. It doesn't have the tools to enable us to comply with the mandate that has been conferred upon us. So there are serious shortcomings, serious lacks in the text. So we were plead with you that if you do intend to continue the path of consultations with the regional groups, then it has to be on the basis of a new text, not this text. Thank you very much. My thanks to Chile. Thank you very much. My thanks to Chile. My intention is to work with the regional groups as well as via bilateral consultations. I echo the point I made earlier to ensure that no members are left outside this consultation process on my draft text. I see once again further requests for the floor. I do want to close the list. I have a point of order from Panama. Panama, you have the floor.
First of all, thank you for your work. We align with the statements delivered by Colombia and Chile, and we cannot take this text as the basis of negotiations. You must provide something new. Our red lines and the red lines of the majority of countries represented in this room were not only stomped, they were spat on and they were burned. We have only 30 hours to prove that we can lead and we can get to a treaty. But our goal here is to end plastic pollution, not simply get to a political arrangement. We need to bring production back. We need to bring mandatory reporting back. We need to bring science and justice back to this text. This is not about closing a treaty at any cost. It is about closing a wound that we're leaving open in people's lungs, in our rivers, in our oceans. But the text presented here makes that wound fatal, and we will not accept it. This is simply repulsive. It is not ambition, it is surrender, and we will not sell out our future generations for a text as weak as this. The mode of work that you're proposing will not work because regional groups do not represent the lines of all the parties. So we beg your indulgence to change the method that you're proposing and to come with a text that is actually doable for negotiation. What we have on the table simply does not work for the majority of people in this room, and you need to listen to us. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Panamá.
Thank you, Panama.
Veo que estamos.
I see that. Thank you. I see that points of order are being used to make statements. And I see that there is still a list of speakers. And I'll ask us to refrain from taking the floor unless absolutely necessary. I see a further point of order request.
Grenada, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the distinguished representative from Chile raised an important point on the procedural matters. We are desperately asking for you to address this before we move forward. Can you please address the issue of the procedural matters that you've proposed that we are all not comfortable with? Thank you.
Gracias, Granada.
Thank you, Grenada. I have requests for the floor on points of order. I think also perhaps reactions to the Chilean proposal. Chile proposed that we work on a second iteration or a second version of the text before meeting with regional groups. However, to work on a document, to put together a second version of the draft, I need to engage in a consultation process. I see a further point of order request.
Uganda, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for your efforts to find us a way forward. Chair, I'm raising on a point of order that you continue to give delegations the floor on points of order, and they do not raise any point of order. They raise national statements. If it is the idea of raising national statements, then it's better you open the floor and we all raise statements. So my point of order to you is you either strictly ensure that the points of order raised are points of order and not national statements, because we all have national statements to make, but we thank you for your efforts and we stand with you.
And I thank you, and that's what I mentioned, that some of the points of order raised here have been statements, and that's what I'm asking also. If there is point of order on procedural matters, please. I have Fiji, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, our point of order echoes the clarity that has been requested by many. I believe that this is a very low starting point for us to have regional consultations. We do hear you, and we thank you for your good work, but I believe we need to be heard. And maybe perhaps the procedural clarity that we are trying to seek here is, in order for you to have these regional consultations, allow us or allow regional groups or member states or committee members to make their statements so that you have the point of clarity on what further work is required before you meet us in a smaller setting. It is absolutely unacceptable to have regional consultations when quite clearly the starting point is even below belt. So let's be clear here that this is the procedure or leadership that we seek from you in order for us to move ahead. Thank you.
And I thank you, Fiji. I would like to go in that manner. I have a list of speakers that I will go in that list to listen also to members. I have Kuwait asking for a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if the floor is open for national statements, we have statements that represent the half of the world population. And we're just following your order and waiting for your procedures to continue. But if people are using the point of order to make national statement, just like what our colleague from Uganda is saying, then we will ask for the floor for national statements. And the time is not in our favor. We've been all asking to move forward because we have less of time for all of us. And now we're wasting time for national statement and under disguised point of order. We will not accept that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I thank you, and that's what I mentioned, that I will take the list of speakers, please. I will take the list of speakers in the order that it has been presented. I would like to give the floor now to Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you'll be glad to know that this is not a point of order. It's merely reflections on the latest text we received. I think this is a milestone that demands some reflection. I will not go into detailed comments. I don't think we have enough time to spare, but just a couple of points that we think are crucial. I think the task before you is rather difficult. I think it is compounded by the lack of a scope. I think you need a scope if you're going to come up with if you're going to usher in an international regime. You need to settle definitions. I can't tell you how many times I discussed issues with colleagues only to discover that we were talking about different things. These things need to be settled once and for all, not just for this agreement, but also for all of those who will benefit from it in the coming generations. Mr. Chair, I think if we're going to make this work going forward, we need to once and for all respect our red lines. And there have been many red lines crossed for the Arab group, and they've been clear for years. I think one thing that we should be careful of is balance especially between the measures, Articles 3, Articles 5, 7, and 8. And lastly, no room for new concepts that are not agreed. We're not here to invent new country categories, and I'm referring to Article 11. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, Saudi Arabia. Now I'd like to give the floor to the European Union, followed by Kenya. EU, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of EU and its 27 member states. First of all, let me express our gratitude to you, Chair, and your team for the hard work going into the preparations of this text. Therefore, we welcome your step to break the deadlock and allow us to advance the negotiations using a new text. That should have allowed us to bridge the gaps between positions. But we must express our disappointment that in its current form, the proposed text is not acceptable. It does not meet the minimum that is needed to respond to the urgency of the challenges before us and the responsibility for a modern economy and public health we all bear. And it also falls short of the mandate of UNEP Resolution 5.14. It is not providing the clear, robust, and actionable measures required to achieve our shared objectives. We believe that only through stronger commitments and more concrete provisions can we ensure the transformative impact that this process was intended to deliver for our citizens and also for the environment. And the EU and its member states remain available to engage with all parties in honest and concrete conversations. We must now continue our work with urgency to profoundly change the text, working together in a spirit of inclusiveness, transparency, and cooperation. And we remain confident that it is still possible to reach an agreement. We reaffirm our full support for the Chair in guiding us towards that outcome. Thanks.
And I thank you, the EU. Now I would like to give the floor to Kenya, followed by the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair. We note with concern that the text of the proposed treaty has been significantly diluted and lost its very objective. It turns out to be a waste management instrument with most actions outlined at the national level. There are no global binding obligations on anything, including on the means of implementation in the proposed text. As it is, the text does not have any demonstrable value to ongoing national efforts to end plastic pollution. We note that some very important texts proposed by member states have been expunged from the proposal before us. Kenya calls for the reintroduction of the previous paragraphs 20 and 21 on the Conference of Parties and the Secretariat, respectively. The current Article 18, Para 2, talks of the meeting of the conference is here convened without saying who will convene the meeting and where. This is an environment treaty, and the convener of the first COP should be the executive director of UNEP. This meeting should be convened at UNEP, where the conversation on the establishment of this treaty started. The text must reflect this. On the Secretariat, it is disappointing that the systematic dismembering of UNEP is in the offing. The requirement of Para 88K of the Future We Want outcome document has been conveniently ignored. Africa's position based on AMSEN decision of September 2023, which decided that the Secretariat be based at UNEP to strengthen and consolidate UNEP headquarter function, has equally been ignored. The text before us has expunged this reference, which has been in all previous texts until yesterday. We call for the reintroduction of this very critical language in the text. Kenya proposes that member states and regions be allowed time to further interact with the proposed text and revert later. Transparency and inclusivity is key in getting the final treaty that will be acceptable to all of us. Kenya reiterates its commitment and support to the successful conclusion of INC 5.2.
Thank you, Kenya. Now I give the floor to the Russian Federation, followed by Micronesia.
Thank you, Chair. Have we understood correctly that you wish to conclude discussions under Agenda Item 4 without providing delegations with a possibility of working on your proposal? Is that the case, Chair?
No, it's not accurate. What I have proposed is at this stage close this part, and because we still have some items, some points in our agenda for today. Would you like to continue, the Russian Federation?
If I may, yes, please. My question is on discussing Agenda Item 4. Are we going to carry on working under Agenda Item 4? Is that correct, sir?
We are remaining under agenda item 4, and we will continue working in agenda item 4.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I thank the Russian Federation. Now I'd like to give the floor to Micronesia, followed by Colombia.
Thank you, Chair. We'd like to go after AOSIS, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Micronesia. I will give the floor now to Colombia, followed by Canada.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair, distinguished delegates. We are very grateful to the Chair for his efforts and the facilitators in preparing this new draft. That said, this new text in its current format, and I'd like to reiterate the point I made earlier, is entirely unacceptable as the starting point for a negotiation. The draft presented to us is imbalanced, it lacks ambition, and it isn't really a compromise text that includes all views. We can't accept such a text as a way of tackling plastic contamination and pollution. It's a text without legally binding tools. It doesn't take any action to tackle unsustainable levels of consumption. There's no reference in it to the chemicals of concern. It's a draft text that overlooks key proposals that have been put forward by a broad range of countries, including those submitted by Peru and Colombia, with regard to our suggestions on decision-making in the COP process, a proposal submitted by 120 countries. And that proposal on the decision-making process in the COP appears nowhere in this text. And so with shortcomings such as that and gaps such as that, how can we back such a text? It would be an ineffective and inefficient text, and not just that. For countries such as Colombia, it would represent a huge burden. The text does not include provisions that would guarantee adequate means for implementation, and those implementation measures are vital if countries such as our own are able to comply with our obligations. So we would be taking on obligations such as the submission of reports, the drafting of national plans, without the treaty making available to us the tools to guarantee effective and real outcomes, and to make that process straightforward. We reiterate our willingness, Chair, to work flexibly and in a constructive spirit. And this is the spirit and the approach that we have adopted since the outset of these negotiations. But we need a basis for negotiations that brings us closer to a balanced, ambitious and effective instrument that delivers on the mandate that was conferred upon us. We cannot therefore work on the basis of this text to move the negotiations forward. Thank you very much. Thank you, Colombia. A point of order from Iraq.
Yes, you are raising a point of order, Iraq. Please.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Chair. You
don't have interpretation?
Yes, okay.
You can go ahead.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you very much, Chair. If we understood you correctly, then you said that there would be an alternative text, a text different from the current version of the text you've submitted to us prior to this plenary, and that second text would be finalized following the consultations with the regional groups that you will be leading. So you'll be meeting directly with the regional groups. So if that is the case, and there will be a second iteration of your draft, I don't see the usefulness of listening to delegations at this juncture deliver their national statements. Those delegations can be delivered during the regional discussions just as well as they could be in this plenary setting, Chair. We are firmly persuaded that you will duly factor in all the opinions and views, and it will be better placed to do that when you meet with the regional groups, and then you'll share with us the alternative text. So we would propose that we now continue on the basis of the initial version of the draft you submitted to us. Thank you.
Gracias, Iraq.
Thank you, Iraq. Nonetheless, I have noted your point, but nonetheless, I do have a list of speakers, and I intend to go through that entire list of speakers. But to reiterate that the intention is to work via consultations with the regional groups and with member states, all member states, and then come up with the second iteration of the draft for further consideration on the basis of those discussions. The next speaker is Costa Rica, followed by Mexico.
Muchas gracias.
Much obliged to you, Chair, and we do fully understand the difficult position in which we find ourselves currently. We are fully alive to the difficulties that we've been confronted with over the last few years and how difficult it has been to get to the point at which we're currently at. However, we only have 30 hours left in hand to come with a treaty. And so I think that our priority for all of us is to make sure that we have before us a text that we can work on towards that goal of a treaty. We therefore agree with the proposal to engage in regional consultations, as you have suggested. That said, we do believe that we need something further. And so we would suggest that you convene an urgent meeting of heads of delegation tonight to engage in the consultations on the political scope and balance of this text, the draft that you have submitted to us for our consideration. And then, following those discussions, we can come up with a text that can then be technically revised by all delegations. And if we follow that track, as well as the track of your regional consultations and consultations with member states, we should be able to come up with a treaty by the end of this session. So that is our proposal. I hope that proposal has been clear. We believe that it is an inclusive way of moving forward, would ensure that we arrive at the appropriate balance to ensure that we have the text of a treaty that we all want. Thank you very much. Thank you, Costa Rica. Thank you for that concrete proposal. I will come back with my reaction on that after we've heard from other delegations who are on the list of speakers. The next speaker is Mexico, to be followed by Chile. Thank you, Chair, and a good afternoon to one and to all. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you, Chair, for all the hard work that you've been putting in for the last few years, and that thanks also goes to your team and to the co-facilitators. My intervention is a mix of points of order, procedural issues, and some reflections. 3 key points. Firstly, the text submitted by you to all of us is unacceptable to many delegations, including the Mexican delegation. It includes no binding control and oversight measures, nor tools. The inclusion of a point on chemicals added to plastics is also absent, as are any of the points about special support measures for developing countries, etc. We're dealing here with a treaty, a historic treaty. We haven't just been spending the last week and a half negotiating this treaty. We've spent the last 3 years negotiating this treaty. And I do want to talk about this whole issue of time, or the lack thereof, picking up on the point made by my colleague from Costa Rica. We've been working for 3 years on this. And now I'm told that we only have 30 hours left to conclude the work, and no more than that. Perhaps a spillover margin of a further 3 or 4 hours, but 34 hours maximum. Given that time is so tight, we need to agree on the procedure. And I think a lot of ideas have been put on the table for the procedural matter and how we can best move forward. With regard to the political scope and political backing, there are various ministers here engaged in these negotiations. I've had an opportunity to talk with many of them. We have a crisis in multilateralism, but despite that, we're all willing to come up with an agreement with a treaty. We have a date with history, and I hope we will be up to par, and we will meet that date with history with an appropriate treaty. With regard to specific suggestions, first, with regard to your proposal of regional consultations and consultations with groups, I would make the point that not all member states are in regional groups. Not all regional groups have the same position, and not all members in regional groups have the same position. So consulting with regional groups would be a loss or a waste of time. So I would suggest that instead of that, you continue in a plenary setting requesting substantive input from each and every delegation who wishes to share their views on the draft text that you submitted to us for our consideration. But we do that in plenary rather than in regional group settings. Once you have completed the consultation process in the plenary setting, then you will still have some hours in hand to come up with a second version of the draft, and you can meet with us early tomorrow with a new text that would duly integrate the views of this plenary and the spirit of this plenary, and not just this plenary, but also the spirit and concerns that have been aired over the last 3 years. Thank you very much, Chair. My thanks to Mexico. I give the floor next to Chile. Thank you to Mexico for your specific proposal. I give the floor to Chile, to be followed by Canada.
Mr. Chair, and apologies for taking the floor again. We wanted to complement the point of order that we raised before, and we wanted to underline a couple of elements that have more substance. We don't want to dwell on too many details of the text because it would be a lengthy exercise, but at the same time, we appreciate that there are delegations that want to speak about process. We would like also to have clarity on what the next steps are. We made a proposal to you to elaborate another text so we can discuss on a more balanced manner. Because basically what we wanted to say in this intervention is that the text is clearly unbalanced and clearly is not a basis for further negotiations. It does not allow us to deliver on the mandate that we have from Nairobi, and basically it delivers or lifts every action to the national capacities, and therefore does not create an international cooperation space to deliver on ending plastic pollution, which is our goal here. There's also a very important issue that hasn't been mentioned, which refers to the ability of the Conference of the Parties to make decisions. This is also extremely diluted, and it's very important that we have the ability to achieve our decisions by consensus, but also it's extremely important that we do not fall into immobilism, into our incapacity to take decisions. So therefore, I would like to underline again that this text is not acceptable for us, and it is very important that we agree on a way forward so we can have a successful outcome tomorrow. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Chile. Thank you very much. Yes, I will give the floor now to Canada, followed by Tuvalu.
Thank you, Chair. Inclusivity and transparency are critical to our process, and we must be able to provide short interventions to react to the text in plenary, so thank you for the opportunity. First, let me thank the co-chairs, facilitators, and emissaries for all their hard work over the past 8 days. While we have done much work, we have a long way to go. Considering the urgency to end plastic pollution, we need an effective treaty that will end plastic pollution. We are very disappointed by the lack of ambition in this text and are calling for a new, stronger text this evening. It's been more than 1,200 days that we have been working towards ambitious actions that address the full life cycle. We have promised the world that we will tackle the crisis of plastic pollution by adopting through UNEP 5.14, calling for a comprehensive life cycle approach. The text in front of us does not adhere to this promise. For example, we are very disappointed by the following: the complete removal of references to Indigenous peoples and their knowledge from all aspects of the operative paragraphs. References to sustainable production exclusively in the preamble text, the absence of global actions on problematic plastics and product design, the removal of measures for chemicals contained in plastic products despite clear call from the science community and Indigenous peoples, an unacceptable decision-making rule for COP decision. This does not reflect the broad support on many proposals, neither the strong messages from the observers and right holders. Let me be clear, this is not acceptable for future generations. Canada is committed to reach an agreement here in Geneva, and we must get back to work towards a strengthened second iteration of a treaty that is fit for purpose for now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. Now I give the floor to Tuvalu, followed by Palau.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the 14 members of the Pacific Small Island Developing States. We welcome your efforts to deliver a streamlined text in which we recognize also the efforts of the co-chairs. Our group has had very little time to consider the text, but from our brief reading of the text, it suggested that your streamlining test has eliminated some key elements that are must-have for Pacific Small Island developing states. Your texts have overlooked many key components that are vital for this treaty. I would also like to register that many of our red lines have been crossed. We need to get to work, Chair, because there are a lot in this iteration of the text needs extensive work on. These omissions that we have seen basically undermine the balance, fairness, and effectiveness of the instrument, and therefore risk producing of an outcome, a treaty that fails to protect our people, culture, and ecosystem from the existential threat of plastic pollution. We believe, Chair, that the proposal from Costa Rica calling for a heads of delegation meeting is fundamental to bring together the committee. We sincerely hope you take these concerns on board and hope that another iteration of the text encompasses these concerns. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, Tuvalu. Now I give the floor to Palau, followed by Egypt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of 39 small island developing states. We thank you, Chair, for the effort thus far. And we are extremely concerned about the low level of ambition in this text. Finalizing an agreement for the sole reason of finalizing an agreement is not what made us travel thousands of miles to Geneva, nor the other INCs. Finalizing an agreement that is equitable, effective, to end plastic pollution, and to deliver on the mandate we agreed to 3 years ago is why we are here. From the outset, we see severe weakness across the entire text. We find the text to be imbalanced. We are also severely concerned about the path forward and the lack of clarity on the mode of work. As others have said, we support the concerns around lack of transparency and inclusivity with the proposed way forward. Regional groupings need time to consult and to coordinate on the text properly before we can engage with the Chair on it. There is an issue of transparency here, Mr. Chair. Consultation with regional groups individually do not allow us to benefit from the exchange of views. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, Palau. Now I give the floor to Egypt, followed by the United States of America. Egypt, please.
سيد الرئيس بداية أود أولاً أن أتقدم بالشكر لك.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I wish to thank you and the Secretariat as well, and the coordinators for all of the efforts deployed over these last 10 days. Chair, we received the text that you submitted. We have examined it. And this was just before this meeting. This text does contain some points which could resemble red lines for Egypt, so we consider that this text is not a balanced one. This is why, given we are concerned that we need to achieve progress in the hours to come, we are in your hands, Chair, to see how we can move forward. We would call for further consultations on this text so that we can achieve results before the end of this session. Once we have concluded this plenary, we could examine the text. We cannot do it here in this plenary. We agree with you that we should discuss this text with the regional groups. Thank you very much.
And I thank you, Egypt. Now I give the floor to the United States of America, followed by Nigeria.
Thank you, Chair. And let me just begin by thanking you for your efforts putting this text together. It's an extremely difficult task. We know you and your team went through an enormous amount of work to put it together. With that said, I want to be clear that this text crosses many of our red lines that we have stated repeatedly. Just for example, in Articles 2, 4, 5, 10, 11, and 13, there are red lines of ours that have been crossed. We do not view this text as being a balanced text. However you plan to iterate the text moving forward needs to reflect our concerns and red lines that have been clearly articulated in this process. And also to say that any final text will require member state negotiation of the text itself. Thank you.
I thank you to the United States of America. Now I give the floor to Nigeria, followed by Norway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate you for the concerted efforts you have been making with your team. However, we have concerns concerning the text that has just been released. For us, we want to specifically mention that the text has gone out of UNEP Resolution 5/14. It has not addressed the full life cycle approach. Specifically, again, we want to say that there is no standalone article on health. Measures to identify and restrict hazardous chemicals, including endocrine disrupting chemicals, are also left out. Processes to address impacts on health and the environment in low and middle income countries where plastics production and consumption is increasing are also left out. Requirements for transparency around the production and use of chemicals in plastics are left out. We believe strongly that if these are addressed, we may want to further engage. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Nigeria. Now I give the floor to Norway, followed by Bangladesh.
Dear friends, I want to start by thanking you, Chair, for making this essential move to prepare a streamlined text. Because we're running out of time and we have heard from many parties already, I will be brief. But this text is not acceptable as it stands. It's not delivering on our promise from UNEP to end plastic pollution. As a co-chair of the High Ambition Coalition, I urge you to hear the many voices in this room calling for stronger collective action and come back to the plenary with a revised text tonight. It is crucial that all further talks are inclusive so that all positions are heard in an appropriate manner. We are eager for you, Chair, to start your work to strengthen this text through further consultations. Thank you.
I thank you, Norway. Dear colleagues, I would like to close the list of speakers because, once again, consultations are important and we should move also. And there is a proposal that we have to consider that has been mentioned here and it has to be considered by the committee. So I will close now the list of speakers, but now I give the floor to Bangladesh, followed by Uganda.
Thank you, Chair. This latest Chair's text fundamentally fails to deliver on the mandate of UNEP Resolution 5/14 to create an internationally legally binding instrument towards ending plastic pollution. It instead presents a weak outcome which excludes supply and does not address the full life cycle of plastics. It does not address health. It does not address chemicals of concern. It does not address waste hierarchy or create strong obligations on transboundary plastic pollution. It also lacks the necessary provision for reliable means of implementation, resulting in a convoluted and voluntary approach that does not reflect the urgency of the crisis at hand. This is, as such, without ambition entirely. A document that does not address the heart of this treaty, which is harmful chemicals in plastics. This is where the scientific evidence of the health harms of plastics is the strongest. Similarly, plastic harms health along its whole life cycle, so the treaty must address emissions and the primary production of plastics. This draft also does little to protect human health and the environment from plastic pollution and does not fulfill the UNEP mandate. It is essentially a waste management framework. It does not create responsibility for plastic producers, nor any binding measures on phasing out the most harmful plastic products. And hence, Bangladesh rejects the draft till its meaningful amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, Bangladesh. I give the floor now to Uganda, followed by Paraguay.
Thank you very much, Chair. We wish to express our sincere appreciation to you, Chair, the various co-chairs, co-facilitators, and all delegations for the tireless efforts in finding common ground. Thank you, Chair, for effectively guiding these negotiations and your leadership in developing the bridging text proposals for the treaty. The world has waited for too long to have a treaty that is focused on addressing plastic pollution. We believe the time is now to give the planet hope. Hope of better product design, hope of better waste management, hope of no microplastics, and hope of meaningful and effective international collaboration to end plastic pollution. Your proposed text, Chair, is not perfect, but attempts to provide a balance and focuses on areas of convergence. We thank you for your wisdom in trying to find landing zones. Your current proposal demonstrates your commitment to building common ground among diverse perspectives, maintaining the spirit of inclusivity, and ensuring that all voices are heard. We recognize the complexity of the task before you and commend your ability to distill our collective inputs into a balanced framework that moves us closer to an ambitious, effective, and implementable treaty. However, Chair, your draft crosses several of our red lines, including on consensus decision-making as opposed to voting, collective but differentiated responsibility, bearing in mind the need to take responsibility for legacy plastics in the environment by those that produced these plastics, adequate flow of means of implementation, among others. I can go on and on. We assure you of our continued constructive engagement, Mr. Chair, working with your proposal to try and improve it by addressing the gaps to give us hope of a world free from plastic pollution. Thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, Uganda. Now I give the floor to Paraguay, followed by Uruguay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, and distinguished colleagues, we are at a historical juncture, and we have a duty and responsibility that we bear to our nations and the entire world. A few hours before the end of INC-5.2, if we fail to find an area or points of convergence that duly reflects the concerns and aspirations of all, then we will be doomed to failure in this process. Against that backdrop, Paraguay issues a clarion call, urging all of us to make progress towards convergence, towards common understanding. All of us must be prepared to cede some ground to win the greater prize, something that we can bequeath to humanity, a legacy for them, a genuine commitment and promise to present and future generations, a treaty that will put an end to plastic pollution. Chair, we would like to reiterate that we will act with conviction, and with conviction we state that we want an ambitious treaty. We are an ambitious nation. Our greatest ambition is to achieve sustainable development as a nation. As far as Paraguay is concerned, an ambitious treaty is one that does not divide nations, nor one that can be used as a pretext to impose restrictions on international trade. An ambitious treaty is one that recognizes the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. An ambitious treaty is one that is solid, robust, that demonstrates solidarity and that duly factors in the different circumstances and needs of different countries that are faced with specific and unique challenges, including those confronted by landlocked developing countries. We don't understand how we can pay attention or heed calls for more ambition if that is not backed by solidarity. particularly when countries which lack the necessary infrastructure are called upon to show ever greater ambition without the support of other nations. And that holds true for landlocked developing countries as well, such as ours. We need to ensure that the treaty is the fruit of multilateralism. It's transparent. And so we call for better organization of the work in the little time remaining to us. Only in that way can smaller delegations such as our own shed the feeling that we are being left out in the cold, and which is something that weighs heavily upon us currently. Thank you very much.
Uruguay, followed by Fiji.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you and all of the co-chairs and co-facilitators of the contact groups for the exhaustive work that you've engaged in to come up with this text and to try and move us forward. Our delegation, the delegation of Uruguay, like other delegations, has demonstrated its engagement with this process and has made contributions to the process that brings us together today. But over and above national positions and national stances, each and every one of us is called upon to deliver upon the mandate conferred upon us via UNEP Resolution 5.14. That's our framework, that's our obligation. A text without any legally binding requirements, a text without an appropriate financial mechanism, lacking an operational decision-making process or framework. Such a text, lacking all of these elements, would fall far short of achieving our objectives of eradicating plastic pollution. Chair, we need to find a way of moving our work forward and overcoming the weaknesses in the text that you submitted to us for our consideration, your draft. We wish to voice our support for your intention to ensure that the text is duly considered by the regional groups, and there are consultations on your text and your regional groups to modify the text where appropriate. We also welcome your attention to carry out bilateral consultations and other consultations as needed. We fully back Costa Rica's proposal, to wit that you call a meeting with heads of delegations, or perhaps more appropriately with chief negotiators, that you meet with the chief negotiators. That would be our preferred option. And that you can also pursue contact with the observers in order to ensure the most exhaustive engagement. We have, as delegations, a power, Chair, a power that billions of people lack at this current time. But alongside that power, as representatives of governments, we also have a duty and obligation to deliver on our commitments, and we hope that we will be able to do so. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Uruguay.
Give the floor to Fiji, followed by the United Kingdom. Fiji, please.
Thank you, Chair, for your consideration of our point of order and allowing committee members to address the issues on your current iteration here in plenary, which is truly a significant regression. As majority have mentioned before me, it is a low starting point. Chair, without going into the details and repeating anything that has been said before me, I believe that based on the comments you have received in this plenary, you now have the necessary building blocks to begin work on a new iteration, one that is balanced and fair, and one that upholds the mandate clearly outlined in UNEP Resolution 5.14, which is to address the full life cycle of plastics. We also echo the interventions made by Palau on behalf of AOCs and Tuvalu on behalf of PSEEDs regarding the transparency and inclusivity with the proposed way forward. Even with a new iteration of a text, could you please clarify how regional groups would interact with each other to come to a point of convergence on long-standing issues, instead of only engaging with your team? Chair, for Fiji, our demands are not a negotiating wish list. They reflect the minimum requirements for a treaty fit to deliver the UNEP Resolution 5.14, and we look forward to working with you to bring us back on course. I thank you.
And I thank you, Fiji. Now I give the floor to the United Kingdom, followed by Brazil. UK,
Thank
please.
you, Chair. I need to convey my extreme disappointment in the lack of balance in this text. We are an ambitious country, but the United Kingdom has always recognised that compromises are needed if we are to get a treaty we can all agree to. But compromise has to work both ways. This text is not a compromise. Our ocean is one ocean, and plastic pollution does not respect national boundaries, and only global action can respond to it. We need an effective treaty for our people, for our planet, with strong action on problematic products and product design, and we need effective decision-making to ensure we have a living treaty. We do not see any of this in this text. This is a text that takes us towards the lowest common denominator across all elements of the treaty. It has been said many times that the world is watching. We cannot go back and tell our citizens and future generations that we came to Geneva and not only did we not reach a deal, but we have taken a step back. We are in the final hours and time is running out. We see very little value in starting consultations on this particular draft through regional groups. We therefore request that negotiations continue, but not on the basis of this current draft, which is unacceptable. We continue to see a path to a treaty this week, and we continue, as we always have as the United Kingdom, to negotiate in good faith, to compromise with others, and to work together.
I thank you, United Kingdom. Now I give the floor to Brazil, followed by Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brazil wants to adopt a treaty that's robust and significant with balanced production and upstream and downstream measures, with the understanding that when we talk about obligations and robust and ambitious agreement, we're also talking, of course, about means of implementation. We had previously said in INC sessions to all our colleagues that science tells us we need to focus on plastics, not only as waste, but as products per se. Definitely a balanced approach is needed. We came here prepared to discuss effective measures on problematic plastic products, and applications of certain additives that pose risks to human health and the environment, and also measures that will allow us to finally leave behind at once the old linear way of production, producing, using, and disposing, and move towards a circular way by designing, producing, using and reusing, recycling, and remanufacturing. We complemented ongoing discussions in the INC by presenting many proposals, for example, on a standalone article on health, stronger language for just transition for workers, including waste pickers, an innovative and different mechanism on international cooperation for all of us, the relationship of this instrument with other agreements, and so on. This we did in the spirit to contribute to the process and to have a robust agreement. We're very much disappointed that we don't see a standalone article on health, and we believe that what we proposed was a bridging proposal. There are many ways we can talk about health on that article, and we can choose the appropriate ways, but we definitely need to talk about health. Our citizens and societies demand it. We also have co-sponsored proposals on human rights issues, especially related to indigenous peoples and local communities. Joint CRPs on means of implementation, just to mention some. We have co-chaired and co-facilitated many of our talks here, not only in this INC session, but in other occasions. As I have said, we are always ready and open to discuss all issues that fellow delegations want to discuss. We believe all the delegations have the right to present proposals, and red lines or not, this right should never be blocked. We thank you very much for your initiative and understand the weight over your shoulders in leading us here in our discussions and offering a possible solution. We also appreciate we don't have much time, as mentioned already by many, but we also need clarity on process, especially on the assurance that we're having a transparent, inclusive process. Regions have different levels of convergence on different issues, and so we understand the doubts around regional consultations brought forward by some on the text that you're offering. Maybe we don't have time also to consult on the whole text, as it is a new version. I would understand that what you're doing is using the regional group meetings as an opportunity to listen to each of us, to us all, and that everybody will be free to bring their own perspectives on your new initiative. We trust you will be able to provide us and implement a procedure that is clear to everybody and that will make delegations feel included, everybody, so that when we meet again in plenary, we, the international community, are together, united, and speaking in one voice in adopting this agreement by consensus. We have already rolled our sleeves up here to talk in Geneva and to work to implement this instrument in the future. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Brazil, and I would like to ask delegations to keep your statements to 2 minutes maximum. Thank you. I give the floor now to Ghana, followed by China.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We thank you for your efforts and the fantastic amount of work that has been done by the co-chairs of the various contact groups. But like others, Ghana supports the points raised by the distinguished delegations of Colombia, Chile, Panama, Grenada, Fiji, and others, with concerns about the process and the draft text. The latest text falls far short of what the world needs to end the plastic pollution crisis. It contains no binding global goals and will entrench the status quo for decades to come, leaving our communities, ecosystems, and economies to pay the price. This is not a compromise. The text claims to be a balanced outcome, yet it fails to respect the red lines set by over 100 states calling for measures across the full life cycle of plastics, positions Ghana has consistently supported. Voluntary national actions have not been enough in the past decades, and they are still not enough now. If they were, we would not be here negotiating. For Ghana, this is a setback for our communities. It ignores the science, the agency, and the moral responsibility we all share. We do not accept the use of this text for regional consultations. We call on the chair to present a new proposal that reflects the ambition of the majority, ensures that the instrument contains strong binding measures, and does not dilute or ignore our shared goals. Let us move forward with courage, clarity, and the determination to tackle the plastic pollution. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, Ghana. I give the floor now to China, followed by Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the Chair for preparing this version of text under extremely difficult circumstances. As many other countries have mentioned, we also believe this version still needs some improvements, in particular Article 10 with regard to the concerns of many developing countries regarding new terminology. If these issues cannot be appropriately addressed, we are worried that it will be difficult to achieve the goal of reaching a treaty instrument acceptable to all parties within the limited time. We agree with the Chair's proposed range to go into consultations as soon as possible to further revise the text. At the same time, we call on the Chair and all other sides and parties in consultation to focus on the most core concerns during the consultation, avoid significantly expanding increasing differences on the text on various clauses. Again, thank you, Chair.
I thank you, China. Now I give the floor to Kuwait, followed by Armenia.
Thank you, Chair. Kuwait has the honor to speak on behalf of the like-minded countries. We're now at the edge of the final lap in these negotiations, and the finish line is in sight. but the path we choose will decide whether we cross it united or in purpose or divided by an agreement that serves some while burdening others. Mr. Chair, the texts have gone beyond our red lines, despite the constructive engagement and commitment made during the past 3 years. Our red lines have been crossed. From day one, we've called for scope to be the campus of this treaty, the guiding star that keeps us on course. The answer has been the same. The mandate is enough, yet the same mandate explicitly recognizing voluntary approach. And these have been consistently dismissed, and we cannot accept a process where some provisions of the mandate are embraced when convenient and others are quietly set aside. This is not interpretation, this is a selective navigation. Let us be clear, excluding scope is not a technical footnote. It changes the entire character of the treaty. Without scope, we risk drifting toward a trade agreement that's wearing environmental clothing. In such a treaty, environmental protection becomes a side dish, served cold, while trade interests dominate the main course. That is not what the world has asked us to deliver. Plastic pollution is a global challenge, but it demands solutions that are pragmatic, inclusive, and just. We reaffirm without hesitation that the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities is the foundation stone of any credible agreement. This is not about lowering ambition, it is about making ambition possible for all. The Rio Declaration is crystal clear. We share one planet, but our responsibility is different. Capacity is different. Development realities are not identical. To those who hesitate, we say without equity, there is no trust. And without trust, there is no consensus. And without consensus, there is no treaty worth signing. We also reconfirm and reaffirm the sovereign right of a state to define their environmental and developmental pathways. Mr. Chair, we're shocked that the text in front of us is we're shocked that the new chair text have a new classification that will never be sustainable. The technology transfer is not real or affordable. It's not free from undue restrictions. Capacity building that equips all to act without sacrificing development. We remain committed.
I thank you, Kuwait. I would like to ask you, please, if we could stay in the 2 minutes limit of our interventions. Thank you very much. I give the floor now to Iran, followed by Philippines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, my delegation wish to support the statement read out by Kuwait on behalf of LMC Group. Mr. Chairman, since the beginning, we have been insisting on having a very fair and balanced text. And we look at the potentials, capacities, and capabilities of countries when we want to design a new instrument. We were insisting on the mandate and also the boundaries which have been clearly designed by the resolution INC-5.2. Having all of this in mind, and also all of the processes that we have taken through various INCs, and also listening to different views and countries, we have been insisting on focusing on areas of convergence. We do understand that there is huge disputes and differences among countries when it comes to different parts and articles of the text. What we are witnessing now with your new text, to our understanding, we can witness some improvements. We see that in some areas there are some progress. Some of them have been the result of the discussions that we have undertaken within the contact groups, but for the rest, not. The scope is of high importance to us. if we do not clarify it, certainly even if we can have some more INCs, we would be unable to reach a good conclusion. On important areas, necessarily we should focus on consensus as a basis for decision making, which is still believed that the new text is lacking. And also about the flexibility towards developing countries. Excellencies, the differentiation among countries has been ignored, and we wish that we can reflect all of these in the course of negotiations, and we hope that we can come to a good conclusion within the coming hours. Thank you.
I thank you. I thank you, Rand. Now I give the floor to the Philippines, followed by Switzerland.
We came here to negotiate an effective treaty, one we would be proud to tell our children will protect their future. The Chair's text is wholly inadequate. It is unbalanced, offers no real core obligations beyond waste management. Yet, we did not come here to negotiate just a waste management treaty. Further, it contains no standalone provision on health, despite strong support among member states. It presents itself as a treaty, but offers no real international regime of core obligations. It is not true to the mandate of UNEP 5/14 to address the full cycle of plastics and promote sustainable production and consumption. It turns its back on science, warning us of the dangers of chemicals in plastics, and it ignores the perspectives of many delegations on chemicals of concern, transparency, traceability, and sustainable production. The proposed financial mechanism creates a new structure without clear obligations to contribute. We regret that language on the status of archipelagic states is absent from the text, despite its firm basis in international law and the well-documented scientific evidence of their unique challenges in addressing plastic pollution. On the procedure, transparency and inclusivity demand that the text reflect convergence at the contact groups and informals. This falls short of our mandate, but we stand ready to work on a balanced text with robust obligations, predictable financing, and full protection for the environment and human health, a treaty that will truly end plastic pollution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, the Philippines. Now I give the floor to Switzerland, followed by Cuba.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your efforts in producing a streamlined text. However, the text remains unbalanced. For example, regarding plastic products in Article 4, Mexico and Switzerland, together with 89 other countries, have submitted a CRP containing national and global measures to identify and control problematic plastic products. In the current proposal, however, these articles begin only with the word should, as if parties to a global treaty to end global plastic pollution were not ready to take on the task to identify and control the most harmful plastic products. This example alone illustrates that the measures outlined are insufficient to meet the requirements set by UNEP Resolution 5/14, and that there is scope to strengthen them significantly. We are ready to engage in consultations with you and other delegations, and we support the call for a second iteration that includes measures covering the entire life cycle, enabling us to fulfill the mandate given by UNEP. Thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, Switzerland. Now I'd like to give the floor to Cuba, followed by Bahrain. Cuba, please.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. We really very much appreciate all the efforts that you and your team are putting in to draft a text that will allow us, just 24 hours from the end of our session, to reach an agreement. We recognize that your proposal does include some of the recommendations and positions shared by Cuba over the years of negotiation that we've been involved in. That said, there are some criticisms that we have about the text. First and foremost, that it lacks a level of ambition and it lacks legally binding targets and requirements for developed countries in the means of implementation, particularly when it comes to obligations pertaining to technology transfer, which should be an obligation bearing in mind their historical responsibility. We are also the view, and this is a point that we've advocated for throughout the negotiations, that things be adopted via consensus, that there be a reparation fund, that there be a requirement for international cooperation, and that there be an anti-unilateral coercive measures, and that these unilateral coercive measures and other concerns be duly covered by the treaty. Chair, we are of the view, we understand that the final outcome of all of this will not be optimal for everyone, but we hope that we can reach a balanced text, at least here in Geneva, that can be ratified by all countries in the future. And if it's a balanced text, that will guarantee its implementation. We must accept that the treaty cannot reflect the initial positions of all those participating. It needs to be balanced, it needs to be realistic, it needs to be objective, and it needs to be focused on the overarching goal of putting an end to plastic pollution. We stand ready to continue to work with you over the coming hours on the basis of your proposal to ensure that we can conclude our responsibilities under our mandate. We support your continued consultations with regional and other groups via the leaders of those groups. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cuba. I now give the floor to Bahrain, to be followed by Qatar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, I align our statement that made by Saudi Arabia on behalf of Arab Group and Kuwait on behalf of LMC. Mr. Chair, we are deep in the process, and this text leaves us in the dark. It does not provide a clear boundaries, offering neither precise definitions nor a dedicated article on scope. It's failed to ensure developing countries are not penalized for using their own resources. It's failed to take into account the need for nationally determined pathways that take into account each country's circumstances. Mr. Chair, we cannot deviate from the principle of CBDR and a top-down approach. We cannot accept dilutions to financial obligations on developed countries. Also, we cannot accept formulations that introduce new country categorizations, such as parties with financial capacity to do so. We call for an equitable, consensus-based treaty that prioritizes environmental protection. This text crosses our red lines, and we cannot accept it. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Bahrain. Now I give the floor to Qatar, followed by the United Arab Emirates. Qatar, please, you have the floor.
شكرا لكم سيد الرئيس في البداية.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like, as my first order of business, to thank you for the efforts that you have undertaken to come up with a new version of the text, particularly at this very challenging juncture. Qatar would like to voice its position vis-à-vis your text. We do not agree with the fresh draft of this text because this text breaks through red lines, particularly when it comes to Articles 4, 5, 7, and 11. We are deeply concerned by the withdrawal of square brackets on some of our red lines, and that means that we have failed to achieve a balance, either in the negotiations or in the text. The text fails to respect the sensitivities and concerns that have been voiced and duly acknowledged previously. There is no clear position on many of the issues of concern. There is no reference, for example, to scope. And so it's difficult to pursue genuine negotiations because without some of these factors such as scope, we don't understand what obligations we are entering into, and we might not be able to live up to our obligations when it comes to implementation of this text of this treaty. We're not talking here about procedural paragraphs, but paragraphs and elements that are at the very heart of the negotiations, issues that will allow us to protect our priorities and pursue economic growth and development. We would like to call for a more organized approach. We need to reach agreement on the scope and the definitions before moving on to additional substantive issues. Now, we stand ready to contribute to achieving an effective and balanced treaty which duly distinguishes between the different needs of different countries and the different needs of different peoples covered by this treaty, which will allow us to overcome common challenges. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Qatar. Now I give the floor to the United Arab Emirates, followed by Honduras.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أشكركم.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the efforts you put into coming up with this new revised draft of the text. The United Arab Emirates, or UAE, would like to reiterate its support for the statement made by Saudi Arabia speaking on behalf of the Arab group. We also support the statement made by Kuwait speaking on behalf of the like-minded group. We are close to the end of the second part of the fifth session of the INC. We have very little time in hand. We would like to state on the record that the text as currently presented does not live up to expectations. It goes beyond the mandate conferred upon us and has ignored some of the points we requested be included. It has flouted some of the red lines that we have voiced during previous stages of the negotiations. And given that is the case, we cannot accept this treaty. We cannot accept a treaty that does not include an article on scope, for example. We cannot accept a text that does not contain comprehensive and clear definitions that allows us to better understand the concepts covered by the treaty and avoid any mis- or abusive interpretation of the concepts in the future. We will not accept the categorization or classification of countries or new categories of countries, particularly when it comes to issues of financing, capacity building and transfer of technology. The UAE would like to see at the end of our work a global, comprehensive and holistic treaty that unites rather than divides and that supports countries and does not tie their hands or limit their capacities. We would like to see a treaty that protects the environment and that will redound to the benefit of one and all. A treaty that is based on consensus in order to bring about equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the United Arab Emirates. And now I give the floor to Honduras, followed by India.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'd like to express our appreciation to you and your team, all the co-facilitators, for your hard work. We would like to place on the record our concerns that the current draft of the text does not reflect the full scope of concerns and needs with regard to the magnitude and scale of the issue. We see that the current draft allows for flexible interpretation of its content, which would weaken a further treaty. We believe it's important to include in any such treaty, any such text, legally binding obligations that are fair and implementable and enforceable. We would, and that also duly take into account sustainable development needs and national circumstances. On the financing mechanism, we believe there's a need for more accuracy and precision, particularly with the references to existing multilateral instruments and frameworks, which is important to avoid duplication of efforts. With regard to plastic pollution and consumption, although this is referred to in Article 8 under the concept of existing pollution, we believe that we need to beef up the language with clear operational paragraphs which would allow for us to address the consumption of plastics and plastic pollution at the national as well as the global level. We need to strengthen the legally binding nature of the treaty to make sure that it is durable and sustainable. We also need to include elements about the durable and sustainable nature of any plastics that are produced and the safe discarding thereof. I think this would allow us not only to achieve a coherent approach, but also to ensure that we had a regulated and balanced trade in those plastics that would still be possible to trade in at the end of the treaty. I think this would be in line with the mandate of the UNEP Resolution 5.14, but also to be in line with UNEP Resolution 5.14, we need to address the complete life cycle of plastics, including addressing unsustainable patterns of consumption and production of plastics that we currently see in order to curb pollution. We note with concern that there are no references to indigenous peoples and their needs in the text, apart from in the preambular paragraphs. And that's a deep concern because we believe that taking into account their needs is vital. We need to duly focus in the CBDR principle, the precautionary principle, but these need to be beefed up because all of these principles are vital if we're to bring about a fair and equitable regime or system under a treaty. We will continue to collaborate and cooperate where we can in moving us forward in the next steps of our negotiations. Thank you very much, Honduras. As the Chair, I give the floor to India, to be followed by Micronesia. India, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We support the statement made by Kuwait on behalf of LMC. We thank you for the updated version of the draft text. As other member states have, we also have some serious concerns on the text proposed by you, as we see many fundamental elements missing from the text. Having said this, we consider this as a good enough starting point to further our work on finalizing the draft of the treaty. And we would like to work with you as per the procedure proposed by you. We will raise our specific concerns on the substantive aspect of the draft during the consultation process you have mentioned. We also would like to urge the other member states also to have trust in your leadership and express their concern during the course of consultation proposed by you to facilitate a balanced second draft as mentioned by you. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you, India. I give the floor now to Micronesia, followed by Malaysia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Micronesia aligns with the statements made by Palau on behalf of AOSIS and Tuvalu on behalf of Pacific Small Island Developing States. My delegation very much appreciates the work of you and your team, especially over the last several days, including in developing the text shared today. We recognize the difficulty and the challenges of balancing numerous diverse views among the members. However, we must be clear and we must emphasize we do not consider the present text to be an acceptable basis for moving forward. We do not think the text represents a genuine compromise among the many views of members. Most importantly, it is clear that the text would not meaningfully advance or facilitate the actions most important to us. These include reducing the overall amount of plastic pollution that will flow into our country and minimizing the harmful chemicals in plastic pollution that threaten our food supply, our fisheries economy, and our public health. There are other issues that we have with the present text, including the lack of bindingness, the absence of measures on the plastics production, complete erasure of all references to indigenous peoples and their knowledge and their rights, along with many other issues. We still look forward to working with you and fellow members on developing a workable, acceptable text. We need a text that gives us confidence, not only that a variety of members' views have been reflected, but also that our core goals of reducing plastic pollution and protecting human health can be achieved. On that, we have a long way to go. I thank you.
I thank you, Micronesia. Now I give the floor to Malaysia, followed by France.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Malaysia extends our appreciation to you, Chair, and your team for the hard work that went into producing the new draft text proposal. We commend your attempt to bring the proposal between member states. Nonetheless, we share the same concerns raised by other delegations of the non-inclusivity and imbalanced proposition in the text. For example, the scope defining the parameters of this instrument is still missing. This will leave us to proceed blindly, unaware or unable to fully grasp the extent of the implication this instrument will bring upon us. Nonetheless, we are open to explore how the regional consultation you propose could move us forward out of this impasse. But our delegation still takes the view that member states must be allowed to react and reflect on this new iteration. Chair, we align with the statement made by the distinguished delegate of Kuwait, speaking on behalf of the like-minded countries, and with the statement of the delegation of Iran, Qatar, and many others. Our delegation takes this opportunity to express our agreement on the urgent need to tackle plastic pollution, both globally and nationally. However, we need an honest environmental treaty for this effort. Hence, we call for a treaty that is balanced, practical, and implementable, and must not inadvertently undermine sustainable development goals, especially for developing countries. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you, Malaysia. Now I give the floor to France, followed by Algeria.
Thank you, Chair. Je soutiens évidemment.
Of course, I completely support the position of the European Union, in particular on the unacceptable nature of the text as it stands. I know the difficulty of the negotiations that you are leading, and I'd like to thank you for the work you have accomplished. But I wish to stress three particular procedural points. The text must respect the United Nations text, which is not the case on subjects as important as microplastics or the need to take measures on plastic products, which are urgent measures to address the full life cycle of plastics. And that's just one example. Second point, the text must take account of the positions represented by 100 countries from all continents, as represented in Busan and Nice, and that on the matter of production, the declaration of 120 countries is not being respected. And if we do not have the proposals on the COP, then the treaty will remain fixed in time. And this has not been reflected, as we've seen in statements made this evening. Third point, the text must take account of scientists' positions. It is our role as political leaders to listen to scientists on problematic issues. It would seem to me that all of the different elements are available to us to propose a much more balanced text on the basis of the different positions expressed and which go beyond regional coalitions, and we are available to work on this. Thank you.
And I thank you. I thank you, France. I give the floor now to Algeria, followed by the Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Algeria aligns itself with the statement delivered by Kuwait on behalf of LMC. We thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting together this proposal. We recognize the difficult task on your shoulder to reflect all the views. However, my delegation emphasizes that the proposed text does not address all our concerns and red lines. We are concerned that several elements are not addressed properly, including the scope, the definitions, as well as the means of implementation, where the main burden is put on the shoulders of developing countries to implement national plans and activities. We also regret that the issue of affordable technology transfer on preferential and concessional terms is not adequately addressed. Mr. Chair, despite this, we stand ready to engage constructively to achieve a balanced outcome and pragmatic outcome that safeguards policy space for developing countries and provides the needed financial support to tackle effectively plastic pollution. We trust you and we support your way forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, Algeria. Ahora doy la palabra.
I give the floor next to the Dominican Republic, to be followed by Peru, who is the last speaker on the list. Dominican Republic, you have the floor. A very good evening. The Dominican Republic Chair would like to thank you for your work, and similar thanks go to your team, of course. We would like to align ourselves with the concerns raised by Colombia, Chile, Panama, as well as align ourselves with the statement delivered on behalf of AOSIS. We share similar concerns. We recognize that the text is the fruit of a major effort, but one that with which we are not fully in agreement. As you yourself have pointed out, we have less than 30 hours of negotiating time left, and there is a pressing need to include greater levels of ambition in the text to comply with the mandate that was conferred upon us via UNEP Resolution 5.14. We need to be honest and constructive in approaching the existing draft and admitting that it doesn't reflect the level of ambition that needs to respond to the plastic pollution crisis that the world is suffering from. It doesn't meet the needs of the world. It has no article, for example, it sets aside key elements and issues, particularly with regard to an article on health and on the dangerous polymers. And all of these are missing. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you to the Dominican Republic. And I give the floor to the last speaker on our list, which is Peru. Thank you very much, Chair. Peru would like to voice its appreciation to you for the efforts and that you and the co-facilitators have been putting into trying to reach a text for us. You've been working very hard. That said, as will be expected, apologies to interrupt you, Peru, but I have a point of order that's been raised by Indonesia. Indonesia, you have a point of order, I understand?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Indonesia expresses the appreciation to the valuable effort made by the INC chairs.
Mil disculpas.
Apologize.
You raise a point of order because we are having our list of speakers, and we will close the list of speakers with Peru. I have announced the closing of the list some time ago. So I believe it's not a point of order, so we will continue with Peru. Please, Peru, continue your statement.
Gracias. Thank you, Chair. As I was saying, Peru would like to thank you and the co-facilitators for the efforts that you have been deploying. You've been working very hard and very diligently. Nonetheless, as you will appreciate, I think it's important to make it abundantly clear that the outcome of your work, the current draft text, falls short and lacks the necessary ambition. We share the views voiced by many member states from around the room with regard to the whole issue of sustainable development and the glaring gap therefore. We do not appreciate we deplore the lack of a comprehensive, binding approach in the text for the treaty. Given the lack of time in hand, we support the need to move urgently to prepare a new text, a new proposal that would duly include essential measures and which would reflect the necessary balance between the various different positions. This in line with UNEP Resolution 5.14. You may rely on the full support and buy-in of the Peruvian delegation. We will support you, and we will continue to work constructively in the necessary consultation process to bring us to that point. The eyes of the world are fixed upon Geneva, and we cannot leave here empty-handed. We should not spend more time dodging our responsibilities and meeting the challenge head on. Instead, we need to roll up our sleeves and get down to our date with destiny here in Geneva to make sure that we end up with a treaty which is inclusive, equitable, and appropriate. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
My thanks to Peru. I think Brazil has a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just for clarification. My delegation had previously said that we wanted to have clarity on the process and your assurances of an inclusive process. Of course, the plenary session is always very inclusive, and we can hear opinions of delegations about the text that you are offering to us. But it's not clear to me if this was the inclusive process that you needed to have a second version of the text. I do understand that you're still going to visit the regional group meetings so that you can hear more from us. and have a better understanding. And I also understood from you that we're going to have informal consultations. I also understood that there are some proposals that were put forward, including from countries in my own region, about having meetings which could be of heads of delegation or chief negotiators. So I think that these proposals that were put forward are important because then we do have an opportunity to discuss the text in a more precise manner. I don't think we are prepared to see a new version of the text that was not thoroughly discussed and in very precise terms. Sorry, I'm very tired. This is day 9 for me. I'm really tired. So in very precise terms, because otherwise we would always come back here to plenary, criticize points in your text, and then sometimes they're clear, sometimes they're not, and then ask for another version, and then you produce another version, and then we go on like this, and we never really understand which articles are going to be modified and in which sense and why. So I do believe that this was an introductory session where you had probably just an initial reaction, but we still need to discuss your text in more detail. I don't think I would be prepared to be waiting again for a second version before this first version is discussed. So just to clarify what we're going to do, I understand that this version is still the one that we will be discussing instead of a second one that we will be waiting for. Thank you.
I thank you, Brazil. As I announced, I have closed the list of speakers some time ago, and that's what I'm doing now. Peru was our last speaker in the list, and now I will come also with the information that it has been required. But I see another point of order, Iraq.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your efforts, and Iraq would like to support the idea submitted by Brazil about the way we're going further and focusing on the discussion on the current text. Then we could also have enough flexibility to reach more compromise regarding every delegation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you. Estimados colegas,
distinguished colleagues, the text that I submitted to you is a document prepared under my sole responsibility as chair. It's a chair's document. It was intended to facilitate the discussion moving us closer to the draft of a binding instrument to combat plastic pollution. It is, therefore, as a text, a tool that you are free to mould, shape, improve, and, of course, add to or delete from, and you can also add additional wording to it. And I welcome the discussion we've had around the text thus far. This is the point of the exercise, to discuss, to debate, and via that process to reach an agreement. From the outset, my role as chair has been that of acting as a facilitator. It's my role to facilitate, not to impose, and then to seek to interpret the feedback to ensure that we have proper focus and that the outcome is a balanced outcome that reflects the diversity of views and opinions voiced around the room. I fully respect the positions of each and every delegation. But listing each and every different position in a text in and of itself as an exercise would not culminate in an agreement. We cannot achieve consensus simply via writing down in a document all of the national positions and repeating same. That would mean that we would end up with a document that could not be enforced, could not be implemented. We already know very well that the positions and interests of some parties clash with those of others. There is a distinction to be made between the interests and views of some parties as compared with others. We're already fully aware of that. A genuine multilateral understanding and instrument needs to unite the different positions under a common cause, not just in terms of rhetoric, but also in practice. This means that we need to build bridges, not simply dig our heels in over red lines. It means that we need to find common ground and not cling to particular positions or stances. We need to be willing to be flexible. If you are of the view that my text, the chair's text, could stand to be improved, then please let us work together to improve it. Or we can work together to draft an entirely new text if that's necessary. But any such text needs to be the fruit of genuine compromise. It needs to reflect political willingness and political determination, a shared determination to protect our environment, to protect public health, and to protect our shared home, planet Earth. We have said repeatedly, many of us have said, that we have little time left. The clock is ticking. It's now being measured in hours. And that should spur us to ramp up our determination to act. The proposals of Costa Rica and Mexico, there were also proposals from other countries, but the proposal specifically of Mexico and Costa Rica to call an informal meeting of heads of delegation is a helpful and useful way of moving forward. I believe it would be an inclusive and transparent step that we could take to make headway. I believe that that approach, therefore, is a positive one, that suggestion is one that we could make use of. And when we adjourn this plenary, I will convene said meeting, an informal meeting. That will go hand in hand with the facilitation of coordinators who have been collaborating and working with you over the last few days, and other and bringing together others who could also facilitate our task of moving us closer to a text, so they will also be part of those informal consultations. Let's seize these remaining hours to work together on a constructive and urgent basis, and to do so with renewed shared determination to ensure that our work is crowned with a result that, and here I echo what many of you had to say, that is historic, responsible, and the fruit of the compromise of all. With that said, I would like to convene an informal meeting of heads of delegation +1, and that meeting will begin at 8 p.m. That is to say, in 1 hour and 12 minutes from now. At that informal meeting of heads of delegation +1 that will start at 8 p.m., we will continue our discussions, our debate. We will continue to talk on the basis of the text that I submitted to you. I believe that will help us in a transparent and inclusive way to continue our work, and it will allow us to have the starting point to work towards a second iteration or a second text, a second draft. As I said previously, we will also maintain bilateral consultations, and we will also pursue consultations with the regional groups. We will also work via the facilitation of those colleagues who have been strongly supporting us on various different articles and whose facilitation role we've much appreciated. I see a point of order from Senegal. Senegal, please.
Merci.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a point of order. Senegal has been asking for the floor for quite some time. And I know that at the last plenary as well, we saw the same situation. Senegal asked for the floor, and the floor was not given to us. Now you are concluding. I don't know if you would give me the floor so that I could read out my national statement, or if you're going to continue to move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Senegal, as I announced before, I did close the list of a speaker, and our last speaker when I closed the list was Peru. So I did have some requests for the floor. Among those, Senegal was there. But you can always submit your statement on a written form that it will be included in our report. Senegal, please.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, Senegal asked for the floor a long time ago. Perhaps there's a technical issue occurring, but it's not the first time that this has happened. I'd repeat that at the previous plenary, we had also requested the floor, and we were not given the floor. Is there perhaps a technical issue, a technical problem, which means that Senegal does not appear on your list before you? So we're not asking to submit something in writing. We would like to read out our statement, please.
I thank the countries also that also have withdrawn from the list of speakers. I did have, as I said, a list of speakers, including those Senegal, and I can see that there's still some countries requesting for the floor. I would like, as I mentioned, and I have done that, close the list of speakers due to the time constraints that we are facing, that we have faced, so we can move in our process. So I will request your indulgence, Senegal and the other delegations, that we are moving to a heads of delegation meeting where we always have the opportunity also to present our views, our suggestions in that form. Will that be agreeable, Senegal?
Okay, merci, Monsieur.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We will support what you have just said. There's no problem with that. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, and I will continue. Iran, please, you have a point of order.
Thank you very much. What you proposed was just based on the proposal by Mexico and one other country, and we think that it was wise at least to get the views of other colleagues if they accept this arrangement or not, because we accepted that first we have separate regional group meetings with you, and then, if necessary, then we enter into a heads of delegation meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Iran. I haven't finished my proposal or my way forward, and that includes, as well, I mentioned that it will include also separate and bilateral meetings with the members and also in the regional groups. So I was mentioning that, and my proposal is that we start, as it has been mentioned too, with a heads of delegation tonight. It's getting late, and we have only a few more minutes with interpretation. And we move to the heads of delegation at 8 p.m., and we will continue after that with those consultations bilaterally and also with consultations in the regional groups, plus also the work that it has been carrying out by a group of colleagues facilitating also our discussions. I have a point of order from Tuvalu, please.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate your efforts and your suggestion of the way forward. I think you've heard sufficiently from this room that the text you just presented to us does not give us comfort as a way forward. We think that if you're going to have heads of delegation meetings, you should be having those consultations on a basis of the Chair's text that you've presented, but on the previous version as well, because we see that significant elements of the text that you've presented in this latest version have disappeared from the previous version. And it's very hard for us to have a conversation, a conversation of trying to find balance in this agreement where you have heard in the room that there is not balance. And so we need a process to restore that balance and good faith in our negotiations. So can I suggest that if you have a heads of delegation, it's based on the previous version and on this version? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I have mentioned before, the draft text that I have presented as chair is to facilitate our debate. And that debate, I propose to you that we follow the suggestion by Mexico and Costa Rica to have a heads of delegation +1 meeting in 1 hour, and then we continue the debate that we have started here, but focus, yes, in the text that I have presented to facilitate, and if you want to bring any other, like the chair's text that we've been working with, welcome to do so, but I think it's, once again, important that we keep the debate that we have started here, but in an informal way, like it could be with the heads of delegation +1. And also plus all the other actions that we will have with the facilitators in regional groups and also consultations with the members. Iraq, you have a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think we spend a lot of days and a lot of time trying to reach a consensus through the previous text. But when we reach to this point that you Your Excellency propose a new version of the text. That because we wasn't able to reach to anywhere through the previous one or through the discussion. I'm sure 1 hour of head of delegation meeting, if consider the previous text, will not reach to anywhere. So maybe we could depend on the new proposed text, and we understand. We listen carefully to all different aspects also, and we want to reach to an agreement through the 24 hours we have. So we will, as Iraq, we will try to show the maximum flexibility to reach to that point. So thank you very much.
And I thank you, Iraq. What I meant is that we will have the meeting at 8 p.m. That's in 1 hour, not that the meeting will be 1 hour. So I take the proposal from Costa Rica and Mexico, and it has been mentioned by other delegations too, to move to a HOTS +1 meeting, informal, in 1 hour time at 8 p.m., starting at 8 p.m. that meeting. I hope it's agreeable by all of you. Panama, please.
Thank you, Chair, for the space, for all the efforts that you're leading to try to get us to a landing zone. So many countries and so many delegations have been clear that we cannot accept this text as the basis of negotiations. So many countries repeated it. No podemos aceptar.
We cannot accept this text as the starting point or basis for negotiations.
Why you continue pushing the same text when the majority of this room is saying that we cannot accept it? If we go to a Hot Plus meeting, it will be the same scenario as we're seeing right now in the plenary, where all the HOTs that spoke here are going to be saying we cannot accept this text for negotiation. I would rather have something like what the colleague from Tuvalu presented, so that we at least have the previous and the current text. But the current text that you presented cannot be accepted as a basis, and we will not accept it. So we need a different way forward. Thank you.
Gracias, Panama.
Thank you, Panama. Once again, I beg your pardon, I see that we have further points of order. 2 points of order. Iran to be followed by Kuwait. Iran, you have the floor on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We support to have the heads of delegation meeting, as you suggested. But we seek your indulgence that instead of 1+1, at least we can have 1+2. Thank you. And of course, I remember that at the end of Busan, we considered your contribution, your paper, as the starting point. And you kindly suggested to all of us that there is a possibility for any amendment, addition, deletion, and so on. So even in this heads of delegation meeting, I'm sure that there would be some possibility for us to discuss about the ways and means of continuing our fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ranko, wait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To be constructive and to move forward, Mr. Chair, we support your proposal and what Mexico and Costa Rica suggested, and to move with the heads of delegation meeting as suggested. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you, Kuwait. Colombia, Grenada has a point of order. Colombia, please.
Gracias. Thank you, Chair. We wanted to support the statement just made by Panama. A significant number of countries spoke up to say that your draft text could not be the basis for negotiation. And so we don't see the interest in having a space for a meeting with heads of delegation. That would be a waste of time that we can't indulge ourselves with. We would suggest that if you're going to have a head of delegation format meeting, that needs to be on the basis of a new version of the text and thus should take place tomorrow, and that we make use of the remaining time today to engage in the regional consultations that you referred to previously, dealing with only the 4 or 5 most contentious issues in those regional consultations. We'd also ask you to empower your co-chairs to participate in those meetings with the regional consultations, that the co-chair responsible for all of those most contentious articles so that they can receive input on a rotating basis. And that could also feed into a new text tomorrow to decide on issues of a political nature. And that meeting could be in the format of either heads of delegation or friends of chair. But that meeting would be tomorrow and on the basis of a new text. Thank you very much. Thank you, Colombia. Grenada, you have the floor.
Thanks so much, Chair. I just would like to point out I had my flag raised before Colombia. We just wanted to reflect on the proposal that you've just made. Earlier in the session, we did raise a point of order and asked you for clarity on the process forward. So we thank you for the consideration. We also thank colleagues from Costa Rica and Mexico for the proposal, which we support. Grenada believes in the power of a healthy multilateral process and the capacity for us to all work together for a common purpose. We understand that this text that you presented to us, Chair, is a result of difficult compromises, and there's real constraints on the timeline that we have at present. And so we support your proposal to move to the heads of delegation at 8 p.m. tonight. We do not support the proposal that we go to regional groups and regional consultations for new text. This is something that we do not agree with.
Dear colleagues, I have Peru. Please, Peru.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. We wanted to raise a point of order along the lines of our unwillingness to accept the convening of the meeting suggested for 8 p.m. We sincerely believe that the majority of the views expressed by member states around the room shared the view that there was a need to change the text. There were many voices that called upon you to put forward a new text which we can use as the basis to work on. So we would support the view of those who spoke before us, who called for us to use the next few hours, or you to use the next few hours, to work on a new text. And then tomorrow morning early, we can have a new meeting to deal particularly with the political issues on the basis of that new text, rather than having the suggested meeting at 8 p.m. Thank you very much. Peru, says the Chair.
Mexico, por favor.
Mexico, please go ahead. Thank you, Chair. And my apologies to you and to colleagues for requesting the floor once again. What I said was a suggestion made about 2 hours ago, I believe, and we've had a plenary meeting that has continued since then, which has given the opportunity for you, Chair, to hear people talk about procedural as well as substantive issues. I join with the point just made by my distinguished colleague from Peru. I believe that you now have the elements that you need to come up with a new text, and so we could meet tomorrow at 7 a.m. in the head of delegation +1 format with a new text. That might be a better use of our time. So that's a new proposal that would Mexico make on the basis of listening carefully to what has been said around the room. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Mexico. I have a point of order from Egypt and also from Iraq. Egypt first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We heard your advice and suggestion to move forward on the current text with the objective of achieving progress before we end. So may I remind colleagues that it's 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I assume we have close to 24 hours, give or take. Second, we do not support the proposal to go on a new text and wait until tomorrow morning and start negotiations, because this will take us into another spin of talks and engagement. So we support your call to move to discussions, both regional or in a HODS meeting, within hopefully the next. We're losing 50 minutes now, so hope colleagues can move on, and we all, and we support the move to move on to the HODS meeting at 8. Thank you.
I thank you, Egypt. I have a point of order from Uruguay.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Uruguay, in our intervention, our previous intervention, laid out a clear position, which would, but having heard what's been said around the room, we'd make a fresh proposal during this point of order. Now, when we first took the floor, we supported your proposal because you expressed the view that it was necessary to engage in a round of intense consultations, and that those consultations would be via the vehicle of regional group meetings. Now, we supported that proposal that you made at the outset of this plenary meeting. Since then, you have referred repeatedly to Costa Rica's proposal for a head of delegation meeting. And Uruguay also supports that motion put forward by Costa Rica, that there be a meeting with heads of delegation or chief negotiators. But alongside that, there needs to be prior consultation with regional groups, as well as other informal consultations. And these will be the informal consultations that you proposed, the format that you proposed. So our proposal at this juncture is that you do pursue those consultations with regional groups overnight. That would give you an opportunity to hear more in depth the different views and positions. In addition to those regional consultations, you should pursue other informal bilateral meetings, those that you deem necessary, in order to make sure that you've heard the full range of views. And then that you take all of that information and you can then call or convene a meeting of heads of delegation tomorrow morning. You could then share with them the information that you has been fed back to you in the regional consultations and other consultations that would allow you to make forward on a text. We do understand your initial position. We do know that you cannot pull magically a new text out of a hat. You will need input and feedback from all delegations, and so we propose that you follow that format to glean that feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you, Uruguay. Iraq, you have the floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Chair. Iraq supports the statement made by Egypt. If we are going to wait to receive a new text tomorrow, the text should be presented through a plenary meeting first, and we should be able to discuss it before there be any meeting held for heads of delegation. Chair, we did not ask for you to draft a text. That was your initiative. And so we agree with this initiative, with this plan. And we're also prepared to be flexible in this all through tonight until tomorrow morning, so that we can come to the results that we hope for.
Gracias.
Thank you, Iraq. I have a point of order from the European Union. EU, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just to make the point that several others also have made, that if we were to meet here again at 8 o'clock, the heads of delegation +1 or +2, even some are saying, it will only be a repetition of what we've just been a witness to here in the last hours. And we don't have those hours. I think the chair should launch consultations on the text and invite representatives of the regions to his office, of course, as well as delegations that have strong interests in the article, and work in that way, transparent, and work in that way, and then issue a new version. We don't have the time sitting here just repeating this and not really negotiating. Thanks.
I thank you very much to the European Union and dear colleagues, we do not have too much time because we actually are running out of time here in the plenary session regarding interpretation, so we have to move on. So I can hear that the proposal made by Costa Rica and Mexico about a HOTS +1 has been withdrawn. So, and I hear a number of delegations wanted to have those regional consultations, among others, consultations that we will have. So I would like to propose to go that line with regional consultations tonight. I have talked to the Secretary. It's possible, of course, to have those rooms that the regions have been using, and we will arrange my agenda so I can participate in all the regional consultations that we will have tonight, plus the other consultations that I have also announced, I will be carrying out to keep working. I thank you very much for that, and I have a point of order from Saudi Arabia and then Kuwait. Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I seek clarity on the way forward. We were willing to go with the HOD meeting at 8, but we can show flexibility there as well. I just want to make sure that we're deliberating, or the discussions, the upcoming regional discussions will take place
Thank
on
you.
the
If I may,
latest
thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. No, as I have announced now, I will go with the regional consultations with the regions first, and then we could organize for tomorrow, if we see necessary, a heads of delegation. Kuwait, please. And thank you for your flexibility. Kuwait.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, we're very concerned, Mr. Chair. We have only 24 hours left, and it seems that we're going to waste time with consultation. And the proposal to meet with the heads of delegation +1 was a very constructive way to engage with you directly, because it was your chair, your text, Mr. Chair. So we don't understand, and we'd like to express our concern that the process is getting into very slippery slope and we're wasting time. And also we're not asking, or we're not expecting any iteration to the text before we reconvene. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think I have been clear that we will go for the consultations, starting with regional consultations. Please, colleagues, we are running out of time here in plenary too, so I ask your indulgence to proceed as I have announced. I have point of order from Iraq and Tuvalu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to confirm from your plan that any new text will be presented in the plenary first.
I'm not talking about a new text, but I'm talking about consultations. Please, I saw a point of order from Tuvalu, please, and then Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. We were also the ones who proposed a heads of delegation. The regional consultations are not working because we're not seeing, we're just hearing a view saying these other parties say this and we have to accept it. We've had that type of negotiation. We need to be face-to-face at a HODS level to exchange views on the key political issues, not to have somebody's word say, well, this party says this, and we have to have faith that that's the position. We need to be face-to-face with each other to crunch out the political issues, and that can only be done at a HODS level. We can't just have these regional consultations because otherwise we have no idea what other parties are saying. So I'd really like you to reconsider your approach. Thank you.
I thank you. Tuvalu, Brazil, please, and then Nigeria. No, it's Nigeria, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I had asked for the floor, but I wasn't given an opportunity. But my point of order is really about procedure, so don't worry, it's not just some trick. As we are seeing tonight, every mind its own opinion and very strong opinions. So I'm trying to offer a way forward that may be that encompasses your ideas and things that we heard tonight from many delegations. So I think it is a good idea to have regional consultations and as well as other consultations that you're going to conduct tonight. I think we would benefit from some time. I think this meeting was a very hard one, and probably we need to sleep on your text and the discussions that we had and maybe come with a more positive mood for tomorrow. So, and I totally agree with Tuvalu that we definitely need a HODS, and I agree with Uruguay and others that spoke about it. It's very important that we have the opportunity to interact. But what I would propose, because we don't have a lot of time, is that we have a very precise time slot for this HODS meeting, that we have limited time interventions, so that we don't go into those national statements about many things at the same time, and that we focus on red lines about your text, what it might be lacking, what it has that people don't like, but it needs to be red lines. It cannot be everything. We have heard ourselves, this is the 6th opportunity, I believe, so, and I think you do understand the main positions of countries and regions and groups, so focus on red lines, so that it's a very, let's say, well-structured meeting where the face-to-face that Tuvalu was talking about is really to unlock the very crucial points for each side of this room. Thank you.
I thank you, Brazil. Nigeria, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this issue should not be flogged further. Red lines have been identified, concerns were made on this floor. It is important that, Mr. Chair, you go back with your team, articulate whatever were presented as red lines and concerns, then the document circulated for us to look at, after which we can have this meeting. Until that is done, my delegation will not sit in any regional meeting, we will not sit in any head of delegation meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Grenada, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank colleagues from Tuvalu and Brazil. I do believe it's really important that we consider, as Brazil said, a very timed HODS meeting where we have an opportunity to explore the red lines. I do not believe that the regional consultations at this time will help. We've been engaging in a number of consultations the last couple of days. At this point, we really need to consider the red lines and think of ways to bridge many of the concerns that colleagues have expressed here today. So again, I join Tuvalu and in Brazil for you to reconsider utilizing the heads of delegation as a good strategy to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Grenada, and thank you for your suggestions. I have to clarify that any of those consultations, well, it will not exclude any other consultation that we could have. I think it's important that we talk to each other, like it has been mentioned by Tuvalu and others, that we face each other and discuss. Of course, it is important. And also, once again, you have mentioned, we have heard from each other, we do not have too much time. We have to move and start working tonight. We cannot wait until tomorrow. I have offered you to keep working tonight with regional consultations. That doesn't exclude to have tomorrow a HODS meeting that I also think it could be important. It will be important to face each other and to discuss in a HODS meeting. But please allow us to discuss also from tonight in regional consultations like it has been mentioned here. That doesn't exclude any other consultation that we will be carrying out that we have already done. As chair, I have consulted with regions, also using our facilitators. Please allow to have those consultations. Please allow us to move from this plenary session into the regional consultations without prejudice, also that having those other consultations, including HOTS, that we could do it and convene, focus also on a structure, very well structured HOTS for tomorrow in our final hours of negotiation here in 5.2. So please allow us to start with those regional consultations tonight. They are informal consultations that will help us out in our debates. And I thank you very much for that. Thank you. Dear colleagues, it's just one more item as I mentioned, and we do not have too much time. Where is it? Dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, the committee will now resume its consideration of Agenda Item 5 on other matters with regard to the diplomatic conference. Delegations will recall that at the Stocktake plenary meeting on Saturday, 9 August, I have requested the Secretariat to prepare and provide to the committee by Monday, 11 August, possible elements for draft resolutions for consideration by the diplomatic conference. Having said that, I give the floor now to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. As was requested in the plenary on Saturday, the Secretariat prepared possible elements for draft resolutions for consideration by the diplomatic conference, which has been made available on the INC-5.2 webpage as Conference Room Paper 2. These possible elements are based on the common provisions of resolutions of diplomatic conference of many MEAs, including Minamata, Rotterdam, Stockholm, and Basel conventions. The Secretariat took a minimalistic approach in preparing this document, only focusing on those elements that are usually included for any treaty, irrespective of its subject matter and specificities of its provision. The draft is without prejudice to what the INC will ultimately agree in the text of the instrument, and also without prejudice of what the diplomatic conference itself will decide. Thank you.
I thank you, the Secretariat. The committee has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 5. Distinguished delegates, this brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. We all want August 14, that it will be in a few hours we start our last day of negotiations. We want this day of achievement, and our shared goal is within reach. Let us use these precious hours to capitalize on all of our efforts over the past 3 years and deliver on this historic task. Let's continue to treat each other with kindness and respect. This meeting is adjourned.